put the stats up. We love doing this. So the stats are there. Let's put up now the latest numbers are not out for July. So we're waiting for that. But here's what we got. So U.S. housing starts in terms of the number of contracts and building permits and so on and so forth. So there you go. August 2023, 1.28 million. It has moved up and down. 1.35 in September. This is 2023. 1.37 in October. This is in millions now. November, big spike to 1.56, coming down to 1.56 in December. And then January, falling to 1.3, raising to 1.52 in February, all the way to 1.35 million housing starts in June of 2024 from the Census Bureau in the United States. Now, of course, NorthCourt Real Estate has a report out, which is their half-year 2024 report. There it is. I always love it when they come on the show to talk to us, the Nigeria real estate market. Ayo Ibaru is here, and he's going to answer these questions right now. He's CEO of NorthCourt Real Estate. Ayo, it's always a pleasure having you on the show.
Every time I come here, I always have to try to be serious.
Yeah, you got to be serious because...
I was watching your station. I watch it every day. I watched it yesterday, and I was wondering what is he on?
Why am I putting Ayo on the spot? Ayo, we need data in this country. But before we get to that, because your report is very encompassing, you looked at a lot of trends. You did touch on the recapitalization. I just want to get your thought. Now, look, you're a real estate guy, all right? But still, what do you make of just to go back to the Bank Directors Association of Nigeria and their response to this windfall tax? What?
I mean, if anyone attempts to increase the amount of taxes that you have to pay, the natural response is that you will push back. But, when you see what's happening in a lot of banks globally, you find out that not only is their apex banking regulator watching what they do, watching every move, and Mr. Femi Otedola was right. There's quite a bit of spending that, in my view, might need to be redirected to other areas. But you find that banks all over the world, especially in the more advanced societies, ensure that funding gets into the real sector, and that's where I come in, because you also have to track bank movements, and they are right to push back if what they're saying is true in that they weren't consulted. But in the end, they're going to have to pay some taxes because the way they seem to conduct themselves does suggest that maybe they have a bit more money than the central government thinks that they should, and that's maybe my long way of saying let this joy go round and so on.
Okay, but just to stretch this out a little more, just if we take this point by point. So the first point being that they're saying it is excessive because it was initially 50%, they increased it to 70%. One, excessive. Two, the timing is bad because your report from NorthCourt talks about the recapitalization exercise. So on point one, what do you say that it's excessively burdensome and ill-timed? The timing is bad because of recapitalization.
I mean, it's a negotiation at this point. Since they've come back, and I believe because you have Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, who used to be with PwC has moved there. So it's expected that they would push back, but then at the end of the day, the government will say, okay, fine, this is how much you have to pay. It depends on what the taxation revenue received is used for. Now, if it's used in a way that ultimately the overall cost of business for the banks will go down, I think it's something that they can live with. And banks in Nigeria especially are creative, coming up with new products. I was watching you from the green room when you were talking about how banks have been trying to raise funding to meet the capitalization requirements, and I watched the entire GT presentation, the entire Access Bank presentation.
Yeah, that was very spicy.
It was blow for blow. I loved it. Seeing the head at GT come out to throw those sneak disses, as they call it. But you could see what they want to do. You could see the roadmap for what they want to use the funding for. So if the government can ensure that taxation revenue spreads in such a way that it makes the cost of business lower for our Nigerian banks, I think they can come to a slightly increased amount of tax paid over the 50%.
Would you, on the points that high taxes can stifle innovation and growth, where do you fall on that? Do you think, is there a point to be made there?
I mean, to try and mimic what Mr. Mbono would have said, he tends to go a bit cultural on us. Necessity is the mother of invention. He would have said something like that. Now, it is the pressure sometimes that leads to innovation. If you look at a lot of the banking products that we have now, whether it's how quickly transfers are done, how quickly accounts are opened, how quickly cross-border deals are consummated, is really because of the limitations in the environment of the day. So I am want to lean on the pressure will lead to more innovation and not less.
Okay. You talked about the consultation already. Yeah. I may just jump to the last point. The last point on them saying that banks in Nigeria are one of the most heavily taxed in the world. You got the corporate income tax, you got the education tax, you got the AMCON levy. In fact, I need to go over, I'm going to do some research on this because I understand that there are some banks in Nigeria for fiscal year 2023 that paid a higher AMCON levy than some of the other taxes that were applied to them. So on the tax burden, is there any daylights that one can shed on this and say, hey, listen, banks in Nigeria, they're really paying a lot of taxes already before you even slap on this windfall tax?
So they are paying a lot of taxes, but for quite a number of reasons that we may get into sometime in our conversation, banks are still profitable regardless of how difficult the market is. Yeah. They're able to navigate the challenges in the economy, and it appears that right now the central government isn't making much progress on new sources of revenue. So the idea is, who are the people making money now? How can we get even more from them? And I will agree that it is slightly burdensome because almost every month you turn, or almost every period you turn, there's some new tax being slapped on the banks. And that's really because they found a way to work in a difficult environment, whether it's the World Bank report, ease of doing business, which of course has been discontinued, but is still relevant. You see that they have been able to find a way out to create products, to build partnerships, and so on and so forth. And each quarter, when they announce those figures, half-year revenue, they look big, but it does take a lot of work to make those things happen. And our central government right now is in the mode of, how can we get as much money to plug as many holes as we see. So yes, I would go with that.
Perfect. Ayo, you see, you're a flexible guy, and I appreciate that. So because you came here to talk about real estate. So but there's a link here though, because we're going to get to mortgages and all this stuff, right? So thank you so much. So that's on the Bank Directors Association of Nigeria and their pushback. Now let's get to real estate, right?
Let's go.
Let's do it. Data to boost, and thanks to you guys. This is why we always have you on the show, because you guys do so much work.
It's always a pleasure.
Putting these reports. All right, so let's start with the housing starts, right? And maybe you are saying, Rose, is why you're comparing America and Nigeria. But
no, it's fine.
You're a data guy. You're a data man. Can we put up the housing starts numbers? Ayo, why don't we have Nigeria housing starts? Why? Where are the numbers? Let's put the numbers up. In terms of telling us, because you're here, the number of contracts and so on received to build homes and buildings in Nigeria. Ayo, take it away. Why?
So I would first of all have to apologize to the audience. I'm not smiling because I don't take you seriously. Your time is important. This is the most harassed.
Oh, we have time to do.
This is the most harassed I have ever been on this wonderful station. Please let me have the question again.
The question is too much. This data on the screen,
yes,
Ayo.
Please. And
you're not a government guy, you're a private sector guy, and we thank you for the hard work you put.
I've said no a couple of times, but yeah.
So why don't we have Nigeria housing starts? Why don't we have data to tell us how many homes and so on are built? Why?
In short order, it's not a priority to us as a government, as a nation. We do not think that having a central database is important. And I did go through a World Bank report that concluded that when you have transparent markets, which is a result of having a lot of data centrally accessible, you find international investment increasing by a whole 30%.
Look at that.
Now, I was reading the ticker again when I was in your green room, and you see Singapore updating their forecast growth in GDP. And that's because, and that's because if you look at how they've structured their real estate market environment, it's easy for them to attract investment because it's top 5 most transparent markets. If you look at the Global Real Estate Transparency Index, it comes out every 2 years, and the last one came out in 2022. Singapore is like top 5 out of 94. Now Nigeria is 60 out of 94, and that's because we don't have these frameworks arranged. So the reason why we don't have that again is because data in Nigeria in our real estate market is in silos. Yeah. So you have the private sector, which can separate into the legacy organizations, or then you have the age organizations, then you have the younger organizations who are really steeped in prop tech. So those three groups have different data sets. Then you have your developers who have their own data sets. Then you have those who are the fund managers, investment managers, who also have their own data sets in terms of demand, effective demand, and just desired demand.
Yeah.
And then you now have government or administrative data. Now that is spread by state. And the way it is in Nigeria, the more established cities and states have their own data arranged in a certain way. Maybe that will be Lagos, a bit of Abuja, and a few eastern states, right? One or two in the north have data arranged. So it's all scattered, and there's no one who either at the National Bureau of Statistics or at the various state statistical agencies who has come to say, look, let's put all of this together and make it public, accessible, and free.
Yeah.
They have to do that at least for the first 5 to 10 years. So no one has put that together yet.
So how hard would it be, or easy would it be to get it? Because look, developers are the ones that work with the construction companies, right? There's a link there. Help me out.
But developers are driven by profits, so that knocks off 70 to 80% of Nigeria's real estate market. Right,
but then what I'm saying is if we want to find out, okay, how many homes were built in Enugu between the first half of this year? Yes. And I mentioned Enugu because you got some data on Enugu in your report. Yes. How many were built in Sokoto? How many were built in Lagos? So
for that, you would need resources, you would need capacity, and you would need incentive. And
but it's not an application.
The only person who has no, it's not. This is Federal Republic of Nigeria. The only person who has the only institution that has all three is usually the central government.
Okay.
And when you get into the central government, it's a matter of whose kingdom are you trying to disrupt? Which commissioner do you need to talk to? Who does she need to talk to? And so on and so forth. So ultimately, organizations like mine and a few others have to build our own teams and then deploy them in various states. So I just came in from Ondo State about 2 weeks ago. We had to go there with a team, and we had to go to the entire state to get data for ourselves.
Wow.
Because even when governments change, when they transition, you don't even have that framework, right, that someone can pick from the last administration to continue. Now, again, on capacity, I'm not saying this to be disrespectful in that we don't have people who know what they're doing in government. I have friends in government. They know what they're doing. But every once in a while, you see things that make you wonder. So I was watching an interview since we rounded up the Olympics. I think it was Chioma Ajunwa, the first Black African female 100-meter gold medalist.
Yeah.
And she went to the Ministry of Sports, and they didn't know who she was.
Right.
She is the only one who has done what she has done. Yes, it's 96, but who else has done it?
Right.
And she was the first in the entire Africa. And she got into the ministry, and nobody knew who she was. Now, I'm saying that to say this: if you don't know who the right people are, you don't, because data is not just vacancy rates, which we collect, and then price of housing and price of materials, but then it's also the people you need to talk to, the relationships that are there, and then the history behind different projects. The abandoned projects, why are they abandoned? What happened? How can we pick it up? And so on and so forth. So that's really how, it's not convoluted, it's just a matter of bringing it all together and making it available.
Okay, so thank you for that. I mentioned Enugu. Well, let's put up this private real estate. Why do private real estate investors invest in Enugu State? You put this in percentage. I guess this was a survey. The top two was rental income and capital gains.
Yes.
So in terms of what makes, maybe it's an obvious question, what makes rental income and capital gains the top two? I hope we get that survey up. The top two in terms of
why
returns.
People invest in real estate.
Yeah.
Okay, so global net worth, 2/3 of global net worth is held in real estate.
Yeah.
Let's not make any mistakes about it. When it comes to the go-to investment, at the end of the day, everyone brings their funding to real estate, whether it's housing and whether it's land. So what you see in Enugu is emblematic of what you see globally. If you try this in Lagos, you would probably get the same results, because that's the value that real estate brings. Even over a long period of time, maybe a 2 to 3 decade investment cycle, you do see it exceeding the losses from inflation and so on and so forth. So, and I mean, that study was from the University, Nnamdi Azikiwe University.
So, you see, I'm always curious as to wait. So that was the Nnamdi Azikiwe University that
great researchers. They went there. They put out the surveys.
That is fantastic.
They really do good work.
The universities to provide for
They really do good work.
Yeah.
The only thing is, people like me and others who do what I do have to go out there and then pick the research and then actually bring it out.
Yeah,
so yes, so that's what they did. It was a survey-based system, and they spoke to everyone from HND holders to PhD holders, different income brackets, to get that outcome. And so it's the same thing you would see in Lagos. I mean, the only difference, one of the differences when it comes to why people invest in different states and in what they invest in is a function of the nature of the city. So take, for example, a place like Benue State. The way it is now, except infrastructure improves, and security improves, You're not
going to invest in Benue State.
You will invest in agriculture.
Right.
Benue State, Niger State. For Niger State, of course, you have to go solar.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, because infrastructure hasn't gotten to a point where you can branch out into, to them, what might be termed office or high-end commercial real estate investment. Now, in Lagos, certain things are already in place.
Way around.
Yes,
yeah.
You cannot be investing in agriculture in Lagos.
In Lagos, right.
You don't do that. So it's the structure and the nature of the city that determines. Now, on the off chance that you do want to take advantage of some commercial demand that no one else is willing to go into, you can do what a few eastern states are thinking of doing, which is going into grade A hotels, trying to give Lagos a run for their money, because Lagos is increasingly getting the reputation of being congested, and actually being a stifling environment, really. Or you can try to go the way of healthcare investment, which is what Ogun State is trying to do, which is, going through a number of NGOs and religious institutions to invest in 300-bed to 500-bed healthcare institutions. So they are not going head-on against Lagos, toe for toe, pound for pound commercial investment, but they are going by the side, okay, let's do hospitality in the east, or let's do healthcare in the west. Okay,
so thank you for mentioning the little sectors, because again, on Enugu State, there's a second chart you have from your report, types of private real estate investments, right? And we had residential and commercial coming out on top. So that, so 88% respectively for the both of them, ahead of agriculture. So my question was to ask you whether this is replicated in Lagos State. You've already answered it, because it depends on the setup for the other states, right?
Yes, but I can even add that, this study in another 3 to 5 years or 3 to 4 years will not be entirely accurate, because the general nature of things is land gets ahead of the game, and then you find residential following suit. If the parties involved do what has to be done, residential gets strong enough to encourage commercial. Usually retail comes in first. When retail comes in, then it stops at like grade B.
And by retail, shopping malls and things like that, right?
Yeah, all of that. And then you start finding like office real estate. So this, maybe in about 3 or 4 years, will change to maybe more of office if they do it right. Now, if you look at Lagos now has gone through the residential cycle, has gone through the retail cycle, has gone through the office cycle. Now you see that for the last 3 years, it's really been industrial real estate that has led in terms of return on investments and so on and so forth. So that again is the trajectory of the real estate investments you find in various areas. If you keep putting in the investments, it will grow from a shrub into a tree that can bring in further and further.
I love the insights you bring on every time you're on show. Okay, so I'm back on this data matter again. I was on the supply side with the housing starts. Now I'm going to the demand side with existing home sales. So maybe you'll give me the same answer, but I'm going back to the US again, because
your energy level is so high. When is this interview over? You've been
I'm keeping you here.
I'm having a good time. I just
look, because I love your reports. You guys,
the energy is good.
I get excited when you're here, because your reports are just so in depth.
Thank you very much. So, and I love being here.
Hey man, thank you very much. So looking at this now, 2023 existing home sales in the US. Home sales. People are why can't we have home sales in Nigeria? People are buying homes. Businesses are buying homes. Why can't you tell us how many homes were sold in Lagos, Enugu? What's the problem?
So let me tell you a short story.
Yeah.
A certain high-rise development is in Eko Atlantic City.
Okay. I think I know what you're talking about.
A certain businessman was said to have bought it.
Yeah.
Now, by the weekend of that news going around, he published in the newspaper that I do not own this thing.
Wow.
I did not build this.
Right.
The reason being that at that time, the the good people of the EFCC
Yeah.
had, woken up as they do from time to time to do, investigation, illegal flows, money laundering, and so he knew that they were going to come after him.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why, because Nigerians have a lot of investments in real estate, and when Nigerians work hard and raise money, they like to invest in real estate, but we have a tendency to almost, I wouldn't say vilify, but those are the people we go after first.
Right.
If we know that, we're trying to show the public that we're doing anti-corruption or what have you. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. But one of the reasons why you don't have quite a number of people investing here is that, if you invest to a certain level, you have this kind of questions you have to answer. That's one. Two, not many people know how to invest in real estate markets in Nigeria such that you have guaranteed rates of return. We still have a bit of that good luck Jonathan era, because I have money, I am right, and I know what to do about every industry mindset. So you find that most people invest in certain things, get their hands burnt, and then they don't want to invest anymore. But again, you find that most of the investors who put their money in real estate markets want to be a bit more quiet, go under the radar.
Yeah.
It's just easier for them overall navigating.
Well, then, but the data suffers. Then you don't know. But I get what you're saying.
No, but there is a way that it can be done,
yeah.
right? It's just that we haven't gotten to that point in the conversation. We did start it a couple of years ago, but then there were a few parties who felt, they weren't ready to bring the data. So we kept it for the meantime, because it's something that we need to do.
We do.
Because there's a way you can get information and data and put it in a centralized database. You mask, ownership and so on and so forth, such that you have pricing, you have dates, you have how long it took to consummate the transaction, you have a few parties involved, even if you're just a construction contractor, so that we can start from there. Because it's really the only way we can get to a point, where we attract investment values sufficient enough to spur the growth of real estate markets.
All right, let me end on this. It's still on data. You've talked about this before. Mortgages, right? So average US 30-year fixed mortgage falling to, I think, 6.47% in August, as of August the 8th, lowest level since May of 2023.
Yes.
Okay, so again, you've talked about mortgages. Your report even mentions it, very small. So how can somebody put the average and then put a down payment and get data?
I mean, mortgages in Nigeria suffer from so many things.
Yeah.
First of all, the mortgage rates themselves devolve from the national investment and interest rates, and so that already puts a floor below which anyone who is trying to give up their homes or trying to develop for mortgage cannot go. But then again, when you look at the eventual sale prices for housing, even if someone wants to buy using a mortgage, the interest rates will still be high,
right? Because
the eventual pricing of the house is too high, and not many developers are going to take 30-year
mortgage. No. They want their money tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yesterday. In fact, what most developers do as a strategy is the off-take model, which is I show you the designs, I show you the graphics, I show you the approved legal papers, and I show you the site, and you pay 50%, and then when I get to a certain point, you pay the rest, and then we complete. That's really what many developers do, and you can't blame them because of how the
economy is
and the interest rates are going.
Ayo Ibaru, CEO, NorthCourt Real Estate. Please, when your next report comes out, come back and give us these insights. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure being here.
Really appreciate it.